guys, welcome back to Z's Corner. This is Al. So, I've got over 100 subscribers now, and I'm really excited about that. That's pretty awesome to be above that mark in such a short time. So thank you to everybody who's subscribed. Now, in addition, I've gotten a lot of wonderful comments, and, a quick note, I think moving forward, I might make at the start of each new video a time for us to kind of go back and revisit maybe some of the things that I said wrong in previous videos. So in my first video, which was really about the combat triangle, Hugo pointed out in the comments section below that what I said about TOS O'Hara was incorrect. She does not, in fact, counter shield deflection. I checked this, and I was indeed wrong, and Hugo was correct. So what TOS O'Hara really does is that she takes damage that would have gone to shield health, and she shifts a portion of that. In my case, it's 20%. She shifts that part of the damage to the whole health instead when she's proccing. This might not sound like it's much because you're doing less shield health, but remember, you can always have full shields and still blow up. So the shifting over to the whole health is actually a very significant advantage in PvP. All right, well, thanks again to Hugo for pointing out that mistake that I made in my first video. The subject of today's video, though, is really going to be about G4 uncommons and G4 rares and a real quick overview. Today we're going to focus on the Interceptors, and the UNC ship is the USS Kelvin, and the rare ship is the Pilum. I've got a short PowerPoint on this, and after we go through some of the data that's in the PowerPoint, we're going to shift into a couple of example PvP fights that I had versus an opponent, and we'll go over some of that battle log stuff, just so you guys can take a look at that. So what's the difference between the rare and the uncommon ship? Well, the G4 rare in comparison has basically more of everything. More hull health, more shield health, more damage, more mitigation, but most importantly, it has different firing patterns. And I think one of the things I want to talk about really is the significance of having firing patterns that are different, especially for PvP. If we look at the weapons, we'll look at the Kelvin first. This is the uncommon ship. So it's interesting to note that, despite the energy and kinetic weapon type differences, that it looks like what Scopely has done is that the attack statistics of accuracy, armor piercing, and shield piercing are actually they're the same for both energy and kinetic. They're based off of ship class and not based off of weapon type, which one might have assumed before looking at this data. So these are the tier 1 base values that I'm showing right here: min damage, max damage, accuracy, armor piercing, shield piercing. And note that for the Kelvin, it has one phaser turret, and it has two photon torpedoes, so 3 total weapon mounts in all. So on this slide, we're looking at firing patterns, and basically how to read this is that across the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are the rounds, okay? And the weapons, as I mentioned before, has 2 photon torpedoes and 1 phaser turret. So in round 1, you can see that the phaser turrets fire twice, and in fact, that weapon fires once or twice every single round. The photon torpedoes, each of them, when they do fire, they fire 3 times, but they fire every other round, and it's important to note that they do not fire in round 1, and they start firing in round 2, so they fire on the even rounds. Whereas the phaser turrets are firing every single round. So overall, in terms of number of shots per round, in round 1 for the Kelvin, you only have 2 shots. In round 2, you have 8 shots, and then it keeps going. Now here's the Pilum. Again, this is all tier 1 base values. So again, very similar to the Kelvin. It actually has only two types of weapons, 3 overall weapons. It has 1 disruptor cannon, which is energy, and it has 2 photon torpedoes, which is kinetic. But again, if you look at the attack statistics, really, both the energy and kinetics, they're all the same, and they're weighted toward armor piercing because these are interceptors. Min damage for the disruptor cannon is significantly higher than what we were looking at for the energy mount on the Kelvin, and then for the photon torpedo, it's only a little bit higher here for the Pilum. overall. So now on to the firing pattern overview for the Pilum. This is where you kind of see the difference from the Kelvin. Whereas the Kelvin only had 2 shots total in round 1, the Pilum actually has 7 shots total in round 1, and 3 is from the Disruptor cannon. It's that energy mount, and like the Kelvin's energy mount, it's firing every single round, except instead of two fires per round, this is 3 fires per round. The photon torpedo mount on the Pilum fires two shots per round, compared to 3 shots per round on the Kelvin. But it's important to note that the firing has been pulled forward. So whereas the Kelvin was firing in round 2, the photon torpedoes on the Pilum actually fires in round 1. So this makes it that in the first round we fire 7 shots, and round 2 we fire 3 shots. Note that if you look at the aggregate of rounds 1 and 2, both ships, the Pilum and the Kelvin, only fires 10 times. It's just that a lot of the firing for the Pilum has been pulled forward, and this is going to be a significant advantage for the ship when you're looking at PvP, because overall PvP fights are fairly short in general, and when you can fire first, that means you're dealing damage first, and you can kill your opponent faster. And this is just kind of a slide that's looking at the direct weapon damage comparisons. I kind of alluded to this before. If we look at the damage on the Pilum versus the Kelvin, you see that in terms of energy, we see a significant advantage. It's about almost 87%, whereas the kinetic mounts only see a small boost. It's about 16.7%. And same thing for the max damage amounts. 71.3% advantage for the Pilum on the energy, and 16.7% advantage for the Pilum on the kinetic. And then if we look at the weapon statistics, actually across the board, there's pretty significant advantages here, for both types of weapons. In terms of accuracy, it's 56%, 55.89% in advantage for the Pilum. In terms of armor piercing, it's 87% advantage of the Pilum. And in terms of shield piercing, it's about 143% advantage of the Pilum. So now let's take a look at the PvP example, and a big shout out to DDG for helping me out here. We did a few tests, so thank you for taking the time out of your day to do it with me. Now we're going to shift over to the actual game itself, where we can pull this up and look at some of the details. Okay, so this is the fight that we were looking at just now. And before we kind of go into the battle log itself, I just wanted to show you a couple of nifty things. So if you look on screen, there's this little eye in the middle. Okay, if we click on this button, it actually gives us all sorts of cool info. So first off, we can see that both of our ships are tier 7, so it's a fairly quote-unquote equal fight in this case. You see that overall, in terms of attack, defense, and health, that the Pilum outclasses the Kelvin, as you would expect. And also for this fight, for this fight, that we had the exact same crews. Gorkin, mine is maxed, so is DDG's, Kong is maxed, and so is DDG's, and then Worf, mine is T2, and so is DDG's. So, we try to kind of even that out in terms of crew, to say it's not really a crewing thing. It's going to be more of a, of how the ship performs. You can see that, hands down, when you have the exact same crews, and it's not a surprise, the rare ship is going to be the UNC ship. But if we look at some of the statistics that I was just kind of talking about real quick, you can see here in terms of attack, I have 450% attack bonus. He's got 400% attack bonus. The calculation by the game says that my damage per round is about 4 million. His damage per round is about 2 million. And all sorts of other, armor pierce, shield pierce, accuracy comparisons. Nothing really new here. It's going to tell you basically that my ship outclasses his. But if you do click on the little eye icon right here, always look for this in the game, because it gives you nifty info that you never really think about. So, the example is given against a hostile, but, you can kind of disregard that. But what's really going to tell you is that, the amount of damage bonus that you actually get from that 450% attack bonus. In my case, it's giving me 45,628 additional damage. Here, if you look on his, it tells you his as well. He gets about, 35,848 damage additionally. Same thing in terms of defense. If we look at defense, my officer bonus is only a little bit higher, but I have, much higher base stats. My dodge especially is significantly higher than what his dodge is at. Same thing, if you look at it, it tells you what your bonus dodge is from your officers. and this is his. And I should note that, you know, these numbers should be already included in that total dodge amount that you're seeing on screen. So 718K here should have included already this 193,000 dodge from the bonuses. And then health, you know, whoops. So 450% versus 400% on his ship. You know, we can see that overall in shield health, I have 11 million and he only has 7 million. I've got 15 million hull health, whereas he only has 10 million hull health. So we'll take a quick look at this battle log. There's not really going to be that much to it, you know. Like 2 rounds, it's pretty quick. As I said, a lot of the PvP rounds are like 5, or a lot of the PvP fights are like 5 rounds or less. So you're seeing that, you know, I'm getting critical hits because of HG Warp. I get quite a bit of critical hits. Right here, this is pretty significant. So if you look at the mitigation, what you'll notice is that, you know, his mitigation and his shield mitigation is basically at a set percentage until his shield depletes. Once his shield depletes, he's only left with base mitigation, and everything else is going to go straight to hull, and he's going to die pretty quick. So, you know, whereas before I was doing 300, 400,000, 309,000 to 420-something thousand damage per crit, I'm now, when his shields are gone, I'm doing almost 2 million in hull damage. And he's just not going to survive that much longer. So you're seeing round 2 is when the Kelvin really starts firing. He's doing the same thing, lots of critical hit damage. Yet, unfortunately, you know, you can see he dies with my 3 hits right there because he just runs out of hull health overall. So this is kind of the example that I wanted to show you with the same crew scenario. Definitely the UNC ship's going to be outclassed. But, you know, that's not to say that your UNC ship is not able to defeat the rare ship. If the rare ship is not crewed well, then the UNC stands a pretty good chance. And how do you stand that chance? Basically, you have to go all-out attack. So we'll pull up another example. All right, so this is another test that I ran with DDG. Basically, I put on a fairly generic crew. I was trying to go for more of a mitigation type crew with Khan on there for, you know, critical hits over time. And for DDG, you know, I asked him to use a fairly aggressive crew with Yuki, Khan, and HG Warp. Remember, you know, Yuki's ability right here, you know, minus 10% of shield health and at the end of each turn. This, you can almost look at this as free damage. It's pretty significant. But also her officer ability here comes into play quite a bit because she's got 500% bonus based on the crew's health. 500% bonus damage against Romulan ship, which is, you know, the Pilum is a Romulan ship. So Khan, again, helping to deal more hull damage, and then Worf for the critical hits. You can see that in this photo, I mean, he basically pretty handily killed my Pilum. I did maybe, you know, less than, not even a fourth damage to the Kelvin. So, if we look at the battle log real quick here, you see Yuki's proccing with the damage bonus against Romulans. You see, you know, Khan, Honor Guard, Worf, and Yuki all proccing right away. So despite, you know, the mitigation and the shield healing from Spock, it's not going to be enough. Basically, you see here, I don't really deal much critical hit to start off with, whereas the Kelvin is crit hitting right away. So we look at this. You know, this one actually went for 6 rounds. So, you know, that's because, you know, Spock and Kirk and the mitigation around that allowing me to survive longer. But, you know, despite that, you know, HG Worf is good for 8 rounds, so I can't really outlast HG Worf. And in the end, you know, I just run out of hull health and I die. So this is a really good example of how you can accrue to beat a higher power ship. Now, I mean, this is good for you to remember because for some of the higher level players, they might not have the Pilum, like the G4 Rare, as their first ship. You know, an example for me is that, you know, my first ship is the Corvus. It's G5 uncommon. My second ship is the Coronar, which is at tier 8 as well. And then, you know, the Pilum for me is actually basically my third ship. So what does that mean? It means that sometimes in terms of crewing, I can't really use Yuki, Khan, Worf, this type of crew for the Pilum because that type of crew is basically reserved for my first ship of the line, not for my third ship. So when I can't crew it as well, then hey, you guys really stand a really good chance of blowing my ship up. So this is a good example of how to really crew and go all out attack to beat a ship that's in all in stat perspective, it's much better ship. Okay, so a real quick aside, if you have a really large ship and you have absolute advantage, then maybe what you should do is you should really look at things like mitigation. So, a good example is like on the Corvus. The crew that I have right now on the Corvus could potentially do pretty well against most of the lower level ships. So if I was fighting a lot of like G4 UNCs or G3s or maybe G4 rares, I would choose a crew that's kind of similar to what I have on here for my Corvus for my G5, because it absolutely dominates those other ships in terms of stats. And it's kind of a mix here. So I've got Harry. Let's see if we can look at the info here. So I got Harry here. When he's captain, he has a 40% chance to raise shield mitigation to 98%. So that really does, that prevents a lot of damage being dealt to my health. So it's really, mega mitigation. The only downside is only 40% chance, but hey, that's a plus. In addition, he also helps you with attack, because at tier 4 for me, I've got a 50% chance to double the shots of the weapons of the ship in the first round of combat. I already fire 4 times with the Corvus. This says I could potentially fire 8 times in round 1, and that would kill a guy pretty quick. Why do I use Gorkin? I could probably use Gorkin for the 90% hull breach. When I do cause hull breach, I do more damage on critical hits. It's about 20% more damage on critical hits. And of course, HG Warp kind of helps Gorkin proc, because I'm going to be crit hitting a lot anyway. So this is kind of a hybrid attempt at one, a roll for really high shield mitigation, at the same time doing a lot of damage to those lower level ships and blowing them up really quickly. So this is like something to consider if you just have absolute advantage over your opponent's ships. And when I say absolute advantage, here's an example from here. I've got 40 million shield health. A G4 UNC is not going to go through 40 million shield health, before it starts doing significant damage to my whole health. If I were fighting G4 epics or even other G5 UNCs, I probably wouldn't use this crew. There's too much random RNG god chance that would cause Harry not to proc when I need him to proc. So it's not the best crew against similar power type ships or ships that are just one tier down from your ship. But it could be a really good crew to fight people who are much lower level than you. So in summary, basically for today's video is that if your ship is a lower tier and you're fighting a higher tier ship, go all out on attack. If you guys have the same crew, you're going to lose. So try and make the difference changer and difference maker to have a much better crew than your opponent. Now, if your opponent has the exact same crew as you, or they also have a pretty strong attack crew, then you're going to lose. So, try and find another opponent to kind of make it worth your while. And then finally, if you have absolute advantage in ship power, a high mitigation crew may be to your advantage. So thanks for watching. If you're not a subscriber already, please click the subscribe button. Now, in terms of what the next video is going to be, I'm thinking right now that we'll take a look at the G4 Explorers. So the UNC versus the Rare on the Explorers. The Coronar is my favorite ship of the Rares, actually. So, I'll have a chance to kind of show her off. She's an absolute beast. If you guys have a suggestion, please leave a comment below, and we'll take a look at that as well and kind of put it into the plans. I've had someone ask me to do a rogue type or Stella type video. I think actually it's a good direction. Even as you're going into your 40s, I found that some of the research in the Outlaw tree is actually really good and really important for you. So I might do a video on that a bit later as well. So once again, thank you for tuning in, and hope you guys have a great weekend.